First notes. We're going to start out this evening with the generalization of something that I think everyone can easily and readily acknowledge. Having worked on this budget, there's some things that need to be said. First and foremost, I think anyone who gets their bank statement, normally to balance that, the first thing they pull out is their checkbook register. I think we're all familiar with this, whether you get it online or it is a physical register that you list your deposits and your checks in. I want to make this point because working on this, I want to make something very clear how things operate in this township. We have 3 checking accounts that are called funds. We have the cemetery fund, we have the general fund, and we have the tax fund. Each one of those funds that software is located on one computer. That computer is operated by the clerk. Period. One computer, one operator. We have one computer that the treasurer uses to process taxes. However, that is not an accounting system. The accounting system resides with the clerk. So looking at all of these accounts, it has become very clear since I've been working on the audit that when I ran the first general account, the amount of the balance and the deficit balance was astounding to me. We knew that I could not put the year-end entries, again, from the 21-22 audit into the system. I made a special appointment with the computer company, with Pontificate, to bring the computer down, to change the date, to make those entries, and to close the year. So all those transactions, their adjustments, 4 pages of them, would close the year and would move on to the next year for starting balances. So when I did this, I thought surely this would be, when I got stuck, and I will say stuck, with an audit from 22 to 23 that the clerk arbitrarily decided she wasn't going to do. And now I am in charge of this. So in reality, in my world, I'm living in the past, I'm living in the present with the daily work, and I'm working towards the future. What I have found is astounding. And I'm going to try to explain this as easily as possible. And folks, please go back to your own accounts, your own check register when you get your bank account. I think the problem here is that the clerk did not understand that with 3 accounts, every entry that she makes, whether it's a deposit or it is a check, she is creating a check register. She is absolutely creating a check register. No different than your bank. Sends you to show you what you've done, and you compare it to what you have in your register. To go further with this, again, the only entries, one computer, one operator. 3 accounts where items, let's take the cemetery. As the first account on the cemetery, an item that would be given to you to put in would be someone purchasing a plot. That would be a deposit. When a foundation is built, that would be your check. No different than your checking accounts, your deposits, your checks. Okay? The general fund. Randy issues a permit. He gives that permit, the money goes to the treasurer. They all have a receipt, they all have a deposit slip attached. That's your deposit. When the clerk pays the phone bill, the light bill, there's the check, that's your credit. Deposits, checks. Well, in doing this audit, I'm astonished to tell you, and I don't mean this to be harsh, but it's the only way to explain it. The clerk didn't know what she didn't know. If you are creating a check register in a computer system that is designed to do the accounting, there must be a reconciliation sheet. There is a reconciliation sheet for every single account. It is called the general activity account. So again, one computer, one operator, making the check register for the general ledger activity. So when I got this and then saw that on the year-end entries from the audit, I called the auditor and I said, I find it confusing after what I'm seeing, just running one of each register, check register for the cemetery, for the general fund, and for the tax fund. This is what she sent me. First and foremost, this doesn't come off the clerk's computer. If the clerk is the only one with the capability and her job to put in each deposit and each check, in the business world, this is called a daily. That's all it is. It is not a check register. It is a daily. There is no way that you can possibly, in a million years, balance your checking account without your check register. Herein comes the problem with the audit. This is what was given for the balances in the accounts, per the auditor. None of the accounts were balanced with the check register. None of them. The discrepancies in them are astounding. When you run this, you also see any errors or omissions that you would have by having not entered it in the check register. So going through this, it is absolutely astounding that someone, had she run this, if the clerk whose responsibility it is had run this, she would have seen that's why this whole audit is blown up. I also believe this is the reason that she foregoed and unilaterally made the decision not to do the new audit. Every single entry has to be posted. You have to balance from a register. If you think you can balance from this, the next time that your bank statement comes, go and knock on your neighbor's door and ask for their check register. Because that's just about how well the balancing of the bank account is going to go. Entries that were put in on the general account are nonsensical. They are literally imaginary checks and imaginary deposits. The cemetery account for over a year was off $786.36. This would have come in handy. If you miss a deposit, you have the numbers. They're all numbered. You would go to the treasurer and simply ask, my bank statement shows a deposit for $15 on such and such a date. Being small as they are, I can see where they become attached to a different paper. But you still have to balance the account. Otherwise, the errors and omissions, the township truly cannot make a determination of what their funds are. On the tax account, this is a collection of taxes. It has the deposit slip. So as far as any oversight that the clerk may think she has on the treasurer, That's ridiculous. The bank's the oversight. They're not going to give you more money than what you give them in your deposit. The same thing with a check. You have a check. For this one happens to be from the county to the county treasurer for the percentage of collected taxes. It has a check number. On not one of the bank reconciliation sheets on the tax fund is there one check number. This is outrageous that all this time I have listened for over a year of the former township supervisor and the former clerk berate, blame, and use ageist remarks against the treasurer who's been here 40 years because the clerk didn't know what she didn't know, and she never asked. One call to the computer company, if she would have known, if she would have admitted she didn't know what she didn't know, she could have called them and said, you know, I can't find a bank reconciliation sheet. Can you help me out? There's all sorts of reports in there. I found it on my own. I also found the void check register, which has a lot of amazing things on it. At this point, there are over $716,000 in checks on the tax account that have never been registered into the clerk's accounting system. There are over $131,000 in deposits that were never registered in the clerk's accounting system. Again, one computer with the program, one operator. This is across all of them. We keep hearing that, I heard that Stephanie say that she has background in data mining. Well, she should have mined a little deeper for what would have saved this township a ton of money. The audit that we had done before Stephanie came in cost us $2,400. When I was a controller of a business that had a lot of different things going on, because it's a business, you have a lot of more things going on. I never paid for an audit of over $5,500 to do an audit on a company that had millions and millions of dollars. This makes absolutely no sense. None. And I resent the fact that because I'm stuck with it, and she didn't even bother to put the check numbers in on the tax account, I'm supposed to go back and correct all these when this is what she gave, a daily sheet. She never balanced the one, folks. And had she actually run the report, the errors and omissions she would have seen, she would certainly, for common sense alone, known this isn't right. I'm going to have to go back and correct it. 2 years later, I do not have enough time to go back and line item, especially when they don't have a document number, and most of them simply have a transaction number. Excuse me. So first and foremost, an apology is deserved to Pat. Second thing I want to address. I want to publicly thank my sister again for coming up and helping me with the mounds of paper that was stuffed in a drawer. These are not in order. These were vertical while everything else was horizontal. It makes no sense. She volunteered, and I'm sure we all know what that word means. She also bought labels so everything she processed could be absolutely not mistaken for something else, and she bought banker boxes for the actual storage of these documents. So I take umbrage at that fact. Any FOIA, so let's get to the FOIAs now. I've been in office 6 months as of the 4th of October. I have had 4 FOIAs. The FOIAs are perfectly fine. They all went through the township attorney. I do not have a control of an outside source when they give me a cost of what it's going to be to perform and get canceled checks. Hey, wait, when was the last time anybody got a canceled check with their statement? Canceled checks back to 2009 to 2022. This is a waste of time. On the FOIA, as far as the charges that before I was here was $1 a page, which is in direct violation of Michigan law. It's 10 cents a page unless it's legal size. We don't have legal size. The attorney, again, I'm not an expert. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. So there is absolutely no reason that this is all a mess. And I am not going to line item it. I have found that I know the necessary paperwork to send them, and they can highlight and they can correct it. This is why this audit cost us $10,150.
Well, she's...
Which is outrageous. And this one that's been ignored, so again, here we are. Stephanie's ignored unilateral decision, which goes to the fraud case. Again, excuse me. Again, it's a situation of the clerk didn't know what she didn't know. No bank cares what date is on a check unless you have a specialized account that above the signature said, void if not presented in 90 days. So I was turned over for fraud because after I was sworn in, I went and we removed Stephanie as what is right, the right thing to do from our checking accounts, from access to any of them, and I was put on the signature card. The bank, again, they only care if the person who signs the check is the appropriate signer, and I was. So we wasted a lot of time with that, wasted the sheriff's department's time. Let me go back to why I ran. I ran for office because Stephanie had released our personal information to someone who was totally unqualified for it. The second thing is, it really bugged me that we were paying someone to do a job. I mean, I've supported myself most of my life. Was to do a job that we ended up continuing to pay her and having to pay someone else to do the job. What's changed? She didn't do the audit, she didn't do, and she still found no reason not to collect her paycheck and ignore her duties. So we need to make progress. This board is trying to make progress. But these FOIAs that are nonsensical, I mean, really, you didn't even answer the one. And from everything I've seen, you say the clerk, on the 15th, well, I didn't see any resolution where Bernard Nichols was appointed to be the FOIA coordinator. And he did your FOIA. So anyway, That's my clerks, and I would sincerely hope that the two people who have maligned the reputation, asserted falsehoods, would step up to the plate and do the decent thing and apologize to Pat for the harassment over the last year. That's it.
I have to comment, yes, the books were a freaking mess. Yes, I said that for 2 years. It's part of the reason why we needed a new auditor. Yes, I don't disagree with you. I spoke and said that checks had not been cleared out of that system that looked like a check register book for
That's your
over
job.
12 years when I came in. That was one of my points. And as far as that sheet that the auditor received, she asked for that because I told her my numbers would not balance. Pat gave her that. I didn't steal it from somebody's office like you implied. I begged Patricia to talk to the auditor, and not once did she return that call. I told you board members what they were going to charge to get ourselves into balance on that whole thing. And nobody cared, and we sat. So the fact that you say I denied doing an audit, BS, because you didn't get that last audit back until like May 5th or something. They're not going to start the next audit until they finish the first one, which took an obscene amount of time due to the books in this township. So yeah, we're on the same page on that one, Susie. Not totally crazy on the whole thing, but I begged the board for help, and I've asked Patricia for help, and she would not. So don't make accusations you can't back up.
I can back it up.
I can't help a program that I don't know.
Has nothing to do with the program. You would even share year-end settlements with
All right.
me, or bank statements.
We're not gonna argue about it.
Yes, it
You
is.
made your statement, board is not to respond.